must go now, though my heart wants me to stay. That girl is your tomorrow. I belong to yesterday.
Bantayan ang pag-uulat sa bayan na ihahatid sa inyo ng himpilan na kakampi ng bayan. Tutok na sa DZME1530 para sa pinakabagong balita at impormasyon kaugnay sa ika-6 at huling sona ni Pangulong Benigno Aquino III. Ito ang Sona sa 1530 State of the Nation Address 2015. Broadcasting live from the Capital Broadcasting Center studio in Ortigas, Pasig City, Philippines. 25,000 watts of pure AM power.
25,000 watts of pure AM power.
Matapang sa pagbabalita, punong-puno ng informasyon, laging handa sa public service. Ang pagpapagong hanap mo sa AM. Ito ang DZME 1530.
Alamin ang mga naaangkop na propesyong tatahakin base sa inyong kaalaman at hilig. Career orientation you shouldn't miss in pursuing your dreams. Let's talk about career. Natatanging career orientation na tutulong para sa tamang pagpili ng kurso at propesyon. Let's talk about career. Libreng pagbibigay ng on-the-job training sa mga piling propesyon. Makibahagi. Let's talk about career.
All right, magandang hapon. This is Bjorn Martinoff from DZME 1530 AM, guest hosting for Grace Bondad Nicolas today, and very excited to be with you this afternoon. And with me, I'm very excited to say, are two of my very, very favorite people. Yeah, first is Lalaine and Arvy. Lalaine works for a multinational bank, but she has a varied interest, including AIM.
Yes.
And then Arvy is a AVP for SPi Global. Yeah, and he's doing leadership development. Very exciting stuff. So hopefully, from these two very high-level professionals, we can learn a lot about career today, this afternoon, right? So why don't you go introduce yourself, just as much as you want. Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Lalaine, why don't you go first?
Yes, good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Lalaine Rodriguez-Valdes. As Bjorn mentioned, I work with a multinational bank in HR, but at the same time I have active skills-based volunteering exposure in different organizations. So I sit as vice chairman and director with the Alumni Association of the Asian Institute of Management. Wow. I also serve as director for one of the subsidiaries of the bank, and I also serve as an independent director for the Rockwell Club. So it's my way of giving back on top of my corporate life.
Yeah, sounds like a fun-filled life too.
Oh yes, very fulfilling.
Awesome, awesome. Arvy, why don't you say a little bit about yourself? You used to be a radio show host yourself.
That was 23 years ago.
23 years, can you imagine?
Just 23
okay.
years.
So I was a teenager back then. But right now, so I'm doing leadership development for a BPO called SPi Global.
Yes.
And just like Lalaine,
it's a big company,
Yeah, we have 20,000 employees now worldwide. And just like Lalaine, I also do volunteer work. So as a way of giving back, I am part of Toastmasters.
Nice.
And it's for people
I love
who...
Toastmasters.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I used to be part of Zoltan in Quezon City.
Wow.
Zoltan Toastmasters.
Right.
Yes.
So it's a way of, training people on communication skills and leadership skills. And yeah, so basically that's what I'm passionate about.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, tell us a little bit about what you do at work, Arvy. What exactly? You just went into leadership development, right?
Yeah, I did. So for the past 2 years, I was actually doing recruitment.
Uh-huh.
And recently, just about 2 months ago, I moved into leadership development. And what we do there is we train high-performing call center agents, supervisors, and managers on how they can do a better job at work.
So how does it relate to leadership development? Are they already training call center agents to be leaders right from the get-go?
Okay. So after a while, you can pretty much tell who are the high-performing call center agents who would be who would be in a good position to actually get promoted as a team leader in the future. So once we can spot the talent, we give them the training, and then when an opening arises, then they can very easily slip into the role of a team leader.
Oh, okay. And how do you measure that? Is it just pure performance oriented, or is that is there other matrix that you use? And Lalaine, you're welcome to share from your end as well. Go ahead.
Well, when they go through the training, let's say for the team leaders, they go through 8 sessions of training, so that's about 4 hours each.
Before they become team leaders. Nice.
Yeah. And then aside from that, we take a look at also their metrics, because as a call center agent, they are measured in a lot of things, like, for example, how much time do they spend on a phone call, what are their quality scores, and how's their attendance like.
Okay.
And if all of these things come into place, then they get promoted.
Okay. And is there any, so those are mostly quantitative measures,
That's
right?
Yeah.
Are there any qualitative measures? Because this is a show about career, right? And people are interested, probably. How do I get myself promoted, right? How do I get to the next level, right? And how can I maybe best prepare myself and also know what to expect and what are companies really expecting?
Okay.
I know there's a lot of questions in that.
Well, there's a saying: if you take care of your present job, your future job will take care of itself.
Okay.
So
that's the SPi Global thinking.
Oh, not really.
Not really.
That's just something that
That's your own personal philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And similarly, when the call center agents do a good job at managing whatever has been given to them, then that's actually the time that they get tapped for bigger assignments. Because obviously someone who's not performing well in their current job cannot be given higher responsibilities.
In my case, I do believe that, and let me wear a different hat. I mean, yes, I'm from HR, but at the same time, we're also colleagues and members of a society. And in that context, it is, I believe, fundamental that first we know ourselves and our own aspirations and our own strengths. So for me, increased self-awareness is critical and basic. And from there, we shall know what is it we'd want to really be as a professional and even just as a plain individual. And as such, would I want to be an individual contributor, or I'd want to be a manager, or would I want to be more? And that is, would I want to be a leader?
Yeah.
And that is, I believe, a gradation of the roles and the supporting competencies we need to develop subsequently. But first, I think we start with ourselves and ask ourselves what is it we want to be and what we want to be able to give back and contribute to, whether in our workplace or in the society.
So you basically, what's key for you first is, do I really want to go there? Right? Do I really want to get promoted? Right? Not everybody does, right? In general, as human beings, we have the need to grow, though, and to learn and to develop ourselves, right? At least most human beings would say that. And to me, learning does never end in life. It should always continue, right? So it's always a warning sign when someone's stagnant in one place, or they don't want to grow anymore. It's almost like a preparation for the end already, not to be terminal here about this, but so in terms of qualitative measures, right? What would and you mentioned competencies. Competencies can be it's kind of like a very popular word right now in the HR circles. However, outside the HR circles is almost a hated word, right? It's like people don't like it at all, right? What is it that employers, not specifically maybe yours, but in general, what are they looking for before they actually think about promoting someone, into a leadership position?
I think it's a function of where a colleague is relative to how the organization structure is like, and where that or current role in particular lies in that spectrum.
Yes.
And in that sense, if you're looking at an individual contributor at the moment, perhaps the technical skills would be fundamental, or the core skills, knowledge, experience, etc. And from there, it'll move to a professional technical area, and then it'll move up to the managerial, and then the leadership competencies, and that'll be a combination of knowledge, skills, and experience. So I think depending on where, if I am, for instance, an entry level, fresh graduate, right? And I'd want to be first a manager in 5 years' time.
Okay.
What therefore would be the competencies required for me to grow into a managerial role? But that would mean if I'm an entry level, I'll start as an individual contributor. And from there, that means if I'm in production, for instance, then I will have to first know how to operate the machines, get along with my colleagues, be able to follow the production line. Yes, so I'll have to start with the technical skills primarily to build my credibility and my competencies. And these are the technical, this would be the technical side of things. And from there, you should be able to move to the supervisory skills, and then the managerial, and then the leadership.
So supervisory is not yet considered part of manager?
For me, that there is still that distinction between the two. Yeah. Arvy?
Well, because Bjorn, in your question, you said what are some of the qualitative stuff?
Yeah.
And I suppose, and Lalaine mentioned that they should be able to get along with the people that they work with. They should be able to get along with their supervisors. And more than just getting along, they should exhibit the culture that the company is looking for. So, for example,
I think that's very important.
Oh, it's very important.
Agree?
How do I fit in, right?
That's right. Because you can't have lone wolves. Maybe they're high performers, but they don't really know how to work with everyone else. So these are the divas and the superstars.
And the psychopaths.
And the psychopaths, yes. Which is...
Oops, did we just mention that?
Which, incidentally, they said a lot of CEOs are psychopaths.
Oh, really?
Sense, right?
I don't know about that.
But psychopath not in a, like a serial killer sense. It's really more of, they should be able to balance their emotions, make sure that they're taking some tough decisions that ordinarily very sensitive.
That's a CEO's job.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and it's not an easy job.
It is not. Yeah.
Hence, I still have a job myself as an executive coach, right? So, to be honest, I haven't worked with too many psychopaths. Thank God. In terms of qualitative, what would you add? Like, besides getting along with people and fitting into the culture, what would be indicative of someone ready to be stepping up into more leading roles? Maybe first supervising, then managing, then leading. What are the characteristics you'd be looking for?
Well, it'll be, I think, a combination of several things, Bjorn.
Yes.
But like one, whether it's forward-looking. For me, I think the professional maturity is something that's important. Because again, we've seen that there may be and there are a lot of excellent technical professionals, but they're not exactly ready just yet to assume a supervisory, managerial, even a leadership position for that matter. So it is not enough that they are technically competent and technically excellent, and there may be, and they can be a functional expert in that respect. But to be able to manage people and lead people, supervise people, that would require a different set of competencies. It's being able to really lead and have followers believe in you and be inspired by you. And that takes either, to an extent, natural, but it can also be a skill that can be developed among promising and future leaders.
And that's actually surprising to many people. That leadership is a skill. It's not something you're necessarily born with. I've walked into hospitals with the infant care units, and I didn't see any leaders there. There was no newborn leaders there. So there's none that are born that way, right? We all learn it along the way. However, there's some personal characteristics that are necessary to become a leader, I feel. Yeah.
Agree. And when you have a crop of talents, and when you now assess the high potentials, etc., you try and read if indeed they have it, and you give them the opportunities to be able to show that further and develop that further. But benchmarking one vis-a-vis another, some will just stand out, and maybe because it's also their passion,
Yes.
it becomes natural to them, and all the more such skills are developed and honed until they just really differentiate themselves amongst the lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So from the sounds of it, from what I'm hearing from both of you, companies are mainly focused on seeing how the person operates in their environment, how they fit in, how they get along. Is what I would call being able to lead themselves.
Agree?
Being able to lead themselves, right? To me, that's the first level of leadership. Then the next level would be then, and sometimes that's hard to tell. The next level would be then being able to lead followers, right? Lead someone other than yourself, right? But is it really possible to lead others if you cannot lead yourself?
I think it will be challenging because it starts with yourself, I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
And
right.
if we as individuals cannot lead ourselves, how can you actually be credible to others when you don't practice what you preach, you don't walk the talk? I mean, you can do lip service, but it will not hold water for a long time. It may not be sustainable. And I think people will also see through that. And we've read that, authenticity is important.
Yes.
And
very
whilst
right.
you are authentic, you should also be able to flex relative to others and to the times and to the context of the environment you're in.
Yes.
But I think fundamentally, and it's a leadership competency now, you need to be able to lead yourself. The self-awareness is something critical. And in leadership courses we've attended, it starts from within. It starts with ourselves. But that's, I think, fundamental, Bjorn. Totally.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, your microphone's hitting the pearls.
Okay, we'll adjust that
Making
accordingly.
some knocking noises.
To make things more interesting.
For those of you who cannot see Lalaine, she's wearing this gorgeous outfit, and the collar is like an ocean of white pearls. They're just gorgeous, and these tiny little lapel microphones keep banging against one of them. It makes like tick, 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 tick. And that's what you heard? That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so Arvy, what do you want to add?
Well, specifically for the call center industry, people get promoted very quickly.
Yes, because it's a very young,
Yeah,
very vibrant, very fast-moving industry, isn't it?
that's true. As a matter of fact, some of the vice presidents of the company right now used to be call center agents maybe about 10 years ago. So meaning in the span of 10 years, they made the journey from an entry-level position to a vice president position.
Yes.
And one of the things that, whenever we look at a sea of call center agents, let's say
Yes.
like there are 1,500 of them in one place, we look at who are the people who have a natural ability to deal with people. So for example, let's say in a group of 15 agents, there will always be one where a lot of people gravitate towards that person. They have questions, they ask that person.
Yes.
If they need advice, they go to that person. And pretty soon you realize that, it could be that maybe because of the way they were brought up, or maybe because of their natural personality, people just tend to respect them
And feel comfortable with them.
and feel comfortable with them.
Yes.
And then and as Lalaine mentioned, if they have done a great job in their current task, then those are the people that we train. And when we train them, if an opening arises in the future, then they can slide right into, let's say, a supervisory position.
Very nice. And I always say that in order to become CEO, sometimes you cannot go one step at a time because there's so many layers in between, so many levels and so many potential steps. It may be, it depends on the size of the company, maybe 100 or 50 or 200 steps in between. maybe more. How, that doesn't ever happen in your industries, both of you, that people skip some steps? And then who are they? If so, who are they and how does this happen? It's probably exceptional, right, when that happens, right? Yeah.
Let me share my experience because in terms of background, I've come from, I think, various industries.
Yes.
But like in the professional services industry, for instance, we've seen that hierarchy being very structured. And typically, for instance, an entry-level associate or a team member fresh from college will come in at that level.
Yes.
And subsequently, there will be a team leader or an in charge, as we call it, who will serve as, you know, the team leader for that particular project or account. And subsequently, they become manager, director, and then subsequently they become partner, or the overall business lead, no, for that particular practice. But we've also seen professionals, after having been a technical staff for probably about 2 years, they would want to jump into a supervisory or managerial role outright with another organization. And we've seen that. But that is also indicative of that generation's profile, particularly the millennials, as we know them. They're very much in a hurry, and they want to be able to assume a post of responsibility immediately. So there are such opportunities existing. But again, as HR and as managers, as leaders, you would need to assess whether indeed these young talents would be ready and would have that psychological and professional maturity and even the skills to actually manage people. Because it is not automatic. We can be technically good, but we're just not ready yet. And that's a journey which we will have to undertake to be able to manage and inspire people, whether older or of that same generation, effectively.
Yeah.
And we can jump to that, but whether we shall be effective immediately, I think they'll take, you know, a learning curve as well to be able to do that effectively.
You want to add something to that, Arvy?
Well, actually, reacting to what Lalaine mentioned, because I used to work for a multinational bank as well. And when we asked the country manager how he got to that position, I remember his answer. His answer was through a series of quantum leaps.
Ah, yes,
So-
right? So that's kind of like how it happens. That's how to get to the top, right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
cannot go one step at a time. There's too many steps. No?
it could be. And
Unless you have 3 lifetimes. So.
Yeah, or it can be a function of the different tracks you'd want to explore. You can be very linear about it and be a functional expert, and i.e. you become a thought leader. And in that sense, you will become a leader. But if you'd want to make it a bit, you know, cross-functional because you'd want to be a country manager, for instance, if your entry level, for instance, is in HR, but then you'd want to be in sales, and then subsequently you'd want to be in operations, that in itself is also a track.
Yes.
And to becoming a general manager in that respect.
That's true.
You can be a project-based individual or professional because simply that's where you find fulfillment. And you become a project leader in that sense. So you are a leader, but in a different way, not linear, not in a general management way, but you become a leader per project across different markets or in one market. And after doing a project in Malaysia, you can do another project in Pakistan, for instance. So that is possible, and there are several tracks to be able to cover that.
So would it be correct to say that in a way, judging from what you've shared, both of you, that a person needs to show up as a leader today in order to have the position tomorrow? Besides the technical skills, of course, right? Would that be fair to say? In order to get promoted, you almost have to, it has to be visible already to some degree.
I think yes, but whether should it be always in a leadership position may not be. Because one, I think it's a function of the opportunities that are also available. So it's
Yes.
possible
That
that,
could be a restriction, right?
yeah, I mean, given the current state, it may be that the opening is for a supervisory position. And you can try and go into that. And then it can be a horizontal move for the next 2 years or post 2 years, and then another one if there's a leadership post, then you can apply for that. But sometimes for me, leadership need not be that you're always on top. It means you as a leader, sometimes you will have, and you will allow others to lead.
Yeah.
And that's
So it's
giving
more
that
like servant
opportunity.
leadership, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think it's managing that concept and that idea of leadership, and that the ego maybe that's attached to the leadership. That leadership need not be that you're always the diva and you're the at the forefront, but instead it's giving others the opportunity to shine. In that sense, you're paving the way. So you're a quiet leader in that sense, but you're actually serving others and being able to be a leader in that particular way of giving opportunities for others.
Well, Bjorn, in the language that we've heard all of these years, so there's a difference between, let's say, having a formal leadership position where you have the title, and also the concept of being a leader. So they might not have the title, but if in whatever job they find themselves in, they are naturally, they're naturally being a leader, meaning they're modeling the behavior, they're encouraging people to perform at a higher level, then in a very real sense, they already are a leader.
Yes.
It's just that they don't have the title yet.
Yeah. So maybe it would be fair to say that being a leader is a beingness, not necessarily a title. Yes. And that we can be a leader even though we don't have the title just yet, right? And many times that's the opportunity to show what we have before we actually have it. Before we actually have that position. And that's why my philosophy is I need to be who I want to be in 5 years. I need to be that character, that personality, that leader today, right? If I want to be that, like in physical reality in 2 to 5 years. That brings me to the other very interesting topic in terms of development, right? When I was young in my career, there was not much in terms of development, in terms of how do you be a good supervisor. You were a good technician, or technically you were good, you were thrown into a supervisor, so now go run, sink or swim, right? And then whatever happens, and then you deal with it. How about nowadays? Is it getting better? What do you think? What's your sense of, in general? Because sometimes I still feel people are thrown into things.
I think there would still be that ambiguity, and I think that art, of leadership and developing people would still be there. But at the same time, there's obviously science to it. We've seen in the academe and the business schools, they would have such different programs, and even now London Business School would have the Sloan Masters in Management or Leadership, etc.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think what is essentially concept will still have to be practiced, and that practice would remain to be, I'd like to think, and what we've seen, it still is an art. Because once you're thrown in such a situation, yes, you can rely on the concepts, but how you actually flex when you're in that situation, it becomes subjective to an extent, and then this is where, as much as you can, you muster all the competencies you have and the knowledge you have about leadership and managing people. But as to how it is actually applied and how people would react to you, I think that becomes an art where you feel your way through, and it becomes just almost instinctive to be able to fit and manage the actual population you're covering and your actual audiences. So there is that structured part, and that would give you the science to it and the tools, etc. But the actual practice would remain, at least to me, it would still be an art. And a journey, for that matter.
What's your sense, Arvy?
Well, speaking rather of call centers, I know that more and more call centers are actually doing leadership training now. Because, as we've mentioned a while ago, people get promoted very quickly from a call center agent to a team leader position. And so there's a conscious effort to really get people educated on, let's say, on situational leadership, on managing different kinds of people, whether they are, let's say you have the people with high will but low skill, and people with high skill and low will, and how do you flex your leadership style to be able to deal with those different types of employees. And we also give them training on, for example, how do you coach another agent, specifically in terms of performance? What is the format that they need to follow, as opposed to, because normally if they did not get leadership training, their concept of leadership is something that they inherited from their former boss.
Yeah, that's right.
And how my former boss treated me is now how I'm going to treat my employees in the future. So we let them know that, you know, there's a structure with which you coach people, there's a structure with which you give feedback, and if done correctly, that could then, you know, motivate them to perform better, as opposed to if someone just got angry and said, "Oh my God, your metrics are horrible. You should get fired." Like, if someone said that, then obviously instead of motivating the employees,
They're just gonna walk out.
they're just gonna walk out, and then the problem repeats itself, because now we have to hire, you know, new call center agents, train them all over again, and so the cycle repeats itself. So, and they said that, you know, people leave because of the supervisor. Maybe the number one reason for leaving is because they don't get along with their supervisor.
What would be a key thing in giving feedback? What would be a key element that you would ask someone to pay attention to when they give feedback to someone?
Number one, it has to be timely. So it has to be very specific. So, for example, in the call center industry, we can't be giving feedback and say, "Oh, you remember your phone call from 1 week ago where you said this and this?"
In the meantime, you had 1,000 phone calls.
Yeah, we had 1,000 phone calls. So that's not going to work. So normally it has to be instantaneous as much as possible, maybe right after the call. And it has to be specific in a sense that, okay, this is what was the situation, this is what you did, and this is the result. So moving forward, maybe this is the action that you should be taking so that you get this different result. It has to be very specific. And it can't be, "Oh, you know what, you sounded horrible." It doesn't really tell me anything.
Yes.
But if I said, "You know, when the customer said hello and you said hello, that did not sound good." So it has to be something that they can act on.
And it may also be that, well, especially now that coaching is very big as a practice, and you know it's being advocated in organizations, you can start with the actual self-assessment. So you can ask the question, "So how do you think that particular call worked? What do you think you did right, and what was it, you know, you think you can improve on?" So in that sense, it now becomes, or it comes from that particular individual, and he is now propelled to actually think through how he did it. So he gets to process the experience himself, and from there be able to learn from that actual journey, and the answers would actually be coming from him as well. So the ownership and the learning becomes just more meaningful and very true for his experience.
Yeah, so basically you're walking them through a process that helps them coach themselves.
Yes, yes. Because, I mean, mentoring would do, and there will be situations where that is called for, but at the same time, and that's what we're realizing, coaching is something also at times more effective because it's coming from that particular individual.
Yes.
And in that sense, if you'd want that person to also grow and that the learning style of that individual is such, then it becomes just more sustainable as well.
Yeah. Is there still a lot of confusion in the industries about coaching and mentoring? Yes. I see both of you nodding. How does that show up?
Especially for the more senior managers and leaders, we would have the tendency to just tell people what to do. Now, per our experience, the Gen Ys and the traditionalists and the veterans would say, you know, during my time, this is how you should approach it. This is how I think you should do it.
Yes.
In answering a phone call, this is the content that you should be sharing. But coaching, per my understanding, is the art of questioning and being able to allow that particular party to think for himself and generate the solutions on his own. Because he himself is capable of that. You just need, as a coach, you need to guide that individual on how to generate those those solutions through questions. That is my view.
Well, from the call center industry, we actually make a distinction between coaching and giving feedback.
Okay.
Because for the coaching side of it, of course, you would want to develop your call center agents. And it's true, we ask a lot of questions. As a matter of fact, questioning is the main skill. Asking the right questions is the main skill whenever, let's say, a team leader coaches an agent. But there are also instances when immediate feedback is needed. Let's say when they did not follow a procedure and they really do not know what they did wrong on that particular phone call. And there will be instances also when, you know, a very quick feedback session is going to
if I don't know what I did wrong, it's going to make me feel bad, but there's no improvement, right? Because I have no reference at all, right?
Yeah, especially for new hires, because they don't really know, you know, the universe of everything that they need to know to do a good job.
Yeah, and so they're still learning, maybe also by observing others, right? And I think that's also, like you said earlier, there's many times how we pick up our own leadership style by observing our bosses. How important is that modeling from the upper levels to actual leadership development on the ground? Is that like really important, or is it like?
No, I think it's critical actually, Bjorn, because ultimately I believe the leader is the message. So even if we train them that, okay, this is how you should do it, but if the leader himself or herself is contradictory to that, I mean, the colleagues will just get confused. So I think there's a big responsibility attached to leadership and even to managing people. And again, those are two different things. But you as it's through the leaders and the managers that the colleagues would actually see. It's through that lens that they feel the organization and they experience the organization. And hence, the content of what you formally teach them versus what is actually practiced on the ground, it has to be consistent. Because if not, then people will just get confused and they will just get mixed messages. And so to answer your question directly, it is critical. And it has remained through the years. Whether we share that formally or informally, how the leader and the manager would behave would have a direct impact on how colleagues experience an organization.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add?
Well, congruence meaning between how the leader is behaving and what the message is or what the intent is. And yeah, because when we talk about way of being again, way of being is something that gets communicated even before the leader opens his mouth.
That's right.
And so it's important that the leaders that are in position are actually people who walk the talk and they have integrity. And then the rest will follow based on that. And as Lalaine said, the leader is the message.
Yes. And for our listeners who maybe have never used that word being very much or heard it very much, how would you define being in a leadership context?
Oh, that is a difficult question. Like Lalaine said, it's almost an art also.
Yes.
I don't really know if I can quantify that, but I guess,
maybe just describe it. Maybe.
Just describe
or give
it.
some examples, or define being.
Or if I were to use adjectives to, let's say, define who is being a leader, maybe that person is confident, that person has integrity. Yes. No matter how big the problem is, they always make sure that they are unstoppable. They don't get depressed or something, or at least they don't try to communicate that message. So it's always, someone who at really dire circumstances, this person is someone that you can look up to and say, okay, show us the way.
Yeah. Because in the way you feel, they're going to do the right thing even if nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Which brings me to integrity, right? Integrity has been a bit in the press lately about, anti-corruption and blah, blah. But is integrity really limited to not being corrupt, or is there more to it? In a career context, what is integrity?
For me, well, integrity, of course, might just be anchored on what is right and what is not right. But for me, what's important as a leader in being, of course, you have corporate governance, and that's a different, but it's something very relevant in the corporate setting whenever you govern people and organizations. But for me, integrity is also being true to yourself, and this is where authenticity will come in.
That's important.
And that's a big word,
Yes.
and maybe it's easier said than done. because there are just so much demands in society and in organizations that sometimes that even gets questioned. How authentic can you really be? But as you mature, I think, as an individual, you become more confident as to who you really are in your very core.
Yes, and you become more confident in expressing
Yes.
that true self.
Yes,
right?
and that's something that you fight for, and even if it is not popular, still you stick to that simply because you believe fundamentally and deeply that is the right thing for you.
And it also has to do with self-leadership, right?
Yes.
If I cannot lead myself in integrity and in authenticity, how can I then lead others?
Yes.
Right?
And sometimes there are judgment calls that you have to make because you don't feel it is right for your own value system.
Yes.
And ideally, your value system is aligned with that of your organization or the society you're part with. And that is where you now have to make a judgment call. If because your value system is now being forced to bend simply because you need to be popular, that is a distinction you will have to clearly make. Maybe painful, but that's a choice you have to make. Whether would we want to be popular and therefore bend our own value system to be able to conform, or stick to what we believe in, and because that's the person who we are.
Yeah. Arvy, what would you like to add? Integrity, or to what Lalaine said?
Well, Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. Was it Shakespeare who said that? I think so, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, it's my personal story, really. So I used to do recruitment, and currently, if you look at the call centers in the Philippines right now, if you look at JobStreet or LinkedIn, it's like almost every call center is looking for a head of recruitment. And as a matter of fact, just recently I got a job offer to head the recruitment department of another call center. But I felt that would not be being true to myself. Because what I really...
Like been there, done that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess what I really want to do is I want to do leadership training. And I find fulfillment in training young people to assume leadership positions in the future. So in spite of the fact that, it had the promise of a better title, a higher title, higher pay, and all of that, I felt that for me to be in integrity, I had to go with what I really wanted to do. I mean, that was just my version of being true to myself.
Yes. Given the history of the country, having been suppressed for 400 years, right, where leadership really wasn't allowed, you actually took your life into your own hands. Being a leader could have been seen as an act of rebellion and could have gotten you killed. And because of that, what is the state of leadership in the Philippines? Are there a lot of leaders, or are we just catching up? Or where is it at?
I think there are leaders who are becoming more confident in their own voice.
Okay.
But I think what's holding us back is that we've seen a society where to become a leader it meant then that we needed to be popular with the masses. And
So
because
more like
of
a popularity
yes,
contest.
and you have to understand, because that was the context of we were coming from initially. But I believe that is changing with technology as the driving force, as an enabler, where people are just more empowered with the right information, that they can actually make better choices. There's more information into what is the right and proper governance, corporate governance, the right conduct, integrity. So I'd like to think particularly our young population are becoming more educated and are becoming more aware of what integrity really means. And it would mean that maybe it's not popularity, that being a leader may be that I don't have to be exactly popular, but to do what is also right for the country.
Yes.
And instead of going for just my own interests and what would benefit me, it's going to be for the common and the broader good. And our Gen Y in particular, our millennials, are more globally and the most socially and globally aware amongst the different generations. No? And as such, there is hope in this country and in choosing, hopefully, the more deserving leaders.
All right, great. So in a moment, we'll be back. We're taking a quick break for some announcements, some very exciting announcements, and be back in a flash.
Bantayan ang pag-uulat sa bayan na ihahatid sa inyo ng himpilan na kakampi ng bayan. Tutok na sa DZME1530 para sa pinakabagong balita at impormasyon kaugnay sa ika-6 at huling SONA ni Pangulong Benigno Aquino III. Ito ang SONA sa 1530 State of the Nation Address 2015. Astig ang paninindigan. Bawal issue sa pamahalaan. Mula barangay hanggang Malacanang ang pag-uusapan. Narito na ang programa Rock-a-Politics. Rock-a-Politics. The battle to dominate the world is on. Watch out for the world-class mixed martial arts, the Universal Reality Combat Championship. URCC Domination 26. Happening at the Fontana Hot Spring Leisure Parks Convention Center on July 25, 2015. For inquiries, call 045-599-5000 or visit the website www.fontana.com.ph and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Fontana Clark. The URCC Domination 26 at the Fontana Hot Spring Leisure Parks Convention Center, July 25, 2015. Be there. Broadcasting live from the Capital Broadcasting Center studio in Ortigas, Pasig City, Philippines. 25,000 watts of pure AM power.
25,000 watts of pure AM power.
Matapang sa pagbabalita, punong-puno ng impormasyon, laging handa sa public service. Ang pagbabagong hanap mo sa AM. Ito ang DZME 1530.
Natatanging career orientation na tutulong para sa tamang pagpili ng kurso at propesyon. Let's talk about career. Libreng pagbibigay ng on-the-job training sa mga piling propesyon. Makibahagi. Let's talk about career.
All right, welcome back. This is Bjorn Martinoff filling in for Engineer Grace Bondad Nicolas, who runs the show usually very successfully and very excited to be here today. And we have some quick announcements in terms of job openings. There's a company called Elabram Systems Group, ELABRAM. They're at Intel Corporate Center, Unit 1602, Level 16, on Valero Street. Very fancy address in Salcedo Village, Makati. You can send an email to mariagracia.n as in Nancy, and just single letter, at elabram.com, ELABRAM.com. Here's what they're looking for. They're looking for a project admin, and they're looking for a document controller, an NTC coordinator, one project planner, an acceptance manager, one logistics coordinator, one warehouse coordinator, one implementation manager, one AT&D engineer, one RANIE/site engineer, one RBX TRX implementation supervisor, one DT coordinator, one AutoCAD operator, one RAN integration engineer, one senior project manager, one IT implementation, one radio optimization engineer, one O&M assistant, and believe it or not, 15 OSP designers, right? Again, The address, the email address is Maria Gracia, MARIAGRACIA .N at elabram.com, ELABRAM.com. And I'm going to ask Arvy, do you have any job openings at SPi Global, or you always have job openings?
We always have job openings.
You always have job openings.
We hire more than 10,000 people every year, so
Okay.
probably closer to 15,000.
Beautiful.
And if there's anyone out there who wants to, find work as a call center agent,
Okay.
they can do so. They can just go to spi-global.com.
SPI-global.com.
Yep, and then they can walk in, or if they see the SPI logo wherever they are, they can just walk in and apply on the spot. No need to, to prepare anything. Just walk in. That's it. That simple.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Bjorn, if I
Yes.
may, actually for the Alumni Association of the Asian Institute of Management, and particularly the Master in Business Management Batch 1994, we are looking actually for 2 scholars. So we are
2 scholars.
offering 2 full-time scholarships to a Master in Development Management program. And particularly, we are targeting development professionals coming from the Yolanda corridor. So we were able to generate funds to be able to offer scholarships to development professionals. These are the very hardworking development workers in the
Making
different
a
communities.
difference,
And for us, it's our way of giving back, and for them to be able to give a lot more back to the Yolanda communities. And it's a 1-year full-time scholarship that we are offering, and it's at the Asian Institute of Management.
And they get a degree out of this?
Yes, they shall be getting a
Wonderful.
Master in Development Management degree from the
Wow.
Asian Institute of Management. So if
Very
you know of
prestigious.
any individuals who may be interested, and for all of you who are listening out there, if you know of such individuals deserving development professionals, if they can easily just apply directly, they need to qualify and contact the Asian Institute of Management directly
Beautiful.
for
Are there
avail of
any-
such scholarships.
Any prerequisites?
They just need to be able to pass the screening and the criteria, the selection criteria of the institute. And if they are working along and in the Yolanda corridor, so these are the areas affected by Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda in 2013, then they can apply. And should they meet the criteria, then they will be granted such scholarships.
Oh, that's really amazing. Huh?
Yeah, it's our way of giving back.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
And,
I do have a lot of batchmates, and from the same AIM community, being able to help others.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we've been talking about leadership, we've been talking about integrity, we've been talking about the Philippines a little bit and the industries you're in. What advice do you have for people in terms of integrity or leadership? And what kind of mistakes in terms of integrity do young or less experienced leaders make often that you've seen?
We were once young, Bjorn.
Yes,
and
we're all there.
and Arvy, we
Arvy
we
still
did
looks
that.
young.
We were once young, and at sometimes, starting out fresh out of college,
Yes.
we get to be easily swayed, or sometimes we get confused as to simply because it is being done where we are, we thought, and at times we think that it is unacceptable, therefore the right thing to do. And as you mature professionally,
Yes.
you learn how to listen more to your own inner compass, to yourself and your own value system,
Yes.
and be able to confidently say, from my vantage point, this is what I think is right.
Yeah.
And being able to find your own voice as a person, as a professional, and as a leader primarily of yourself.
Yes.
And subsequently of others, because you will realize you share the same set of values with other individuals, and as such, that shared values will now form a team.
Yes.
And as a team, you become bigger as an organization, and it becomes a shared set of values amongst common individuals, and that in itself is a force for good, if indeed that is what you stand for.
Yeah. Even in my book, I wrote an entire chapter on intuition, right? And so I obviously feel it's very important. Is it something you can develop? I always felt it's something you can develop, but it has to be almost like a conscious effort, no, in a way.
I think it's something innate, but at the same
At some
time,
level, yes.
yes, to some extent, it's something innate. But as you increase your awareness, as you listen more, you get attuned with what is not outside, but it's just being able to be more receptive to what is being communicated to you, whether through body language, through words, through sensing. Therefore, that intuition develops a lot more and it becomes stronger, and therefore you can rely on it more, and you become just more adept at it. And so it becomes just more natural.
It's like you can practice it and actually kind of stop for a moment and pause, right? And then really take a moment to listen to what is the feeling that comes up in regards to this. Does it feel right? Or does it feel kind of off a bit? And maybe you can't tell yet where that offness is coming from, but there's something definitely there that doesn't quite feel right. I think it's important to listen to these things, and then, however, not to confuse it with our own fears, right? Because I think that's sometimes where the confusion comes in, when we overlap intuition with our own fears, right? That we may bring to the game. Yeah, and how important is intuition as you grow as a leader in the ranks of the organization?
I think it's very important, specifically because there will be instances when you have to make very quick decisions, and you don't have the benefit of doing a full-blown study or research as to what needs to be done. And we call it intuition for now, but I remember there's this course that all the Disney animators have to go through this course. It's a course on microfacial expressions.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's up and coming, right?
Yeah.
These tiny expressions, they just come up for like hundredths of a second.
Right. So, for example, if it's
like a twitch almost.
Yeah, like
right?
a twitch.
And a twitch would already be a long expression. Right?
Yeah. So there's actually a science to it that you can tell what a person's true intentions are based on involuntary muscle contractions in the face. So on the surface, if we don't go through the science of it, it sounds like almost a mystical thing. But in reality, I guess as our technology becomes more sophisticated, we realize that it wasn't a mystical thing to begin with, that there was actually a science to it. And I suppose the higher you go up in the corporate ladder, the more you get to practice this. For example, when you interview people, I mean, you can talk about NLP and where are they looking? Are they looking to the left or the right?
Yes.
All that
what
stuff.
part of the brain are they accessing? No?
That's true, right? And as people become more sophisticated and if they study this, then I suppose it becomes a natural part of who they are when they talk to people.
Yeah, I find micro expressions a fascinating field. Right? And together with, of course, intuition can be practiced. Just I feel it's like going to the gym. It's a muscle you build, right? And I read a very interesting article. And it may explain why women are more intuitive to begin with. Is that they in World War II they were bringing in American Indian pathfinders.
Wow!
Right, and the reason why they brought them in because they had intuitive skills. They could sense the enemy before he could hear, see, or smell them. Right, and that was a big benefit. Right, they would like sleep in a forest and the enemy might be approaching and maybe 100 meters away and they would wake up just in time. Now, they discovered that once they put them into uniform, all of a sudden, as if somebody had flicked a switch, that intuition disappeared.
Wow.
And they no longer had that ability, as if someone had flicked a switch. And what they discovered was that it was the cutting of the hair that eliminated that ability, right? So at that point, when they discovered this was, imagine this was World War II, this is 70 years or so ago, right? They were no longer allowed, they were not permitted, it was a criminal offense for them to cut their hair. Right? Imagine a soldier, you know what kind of haircut they have, right? they couldn't. They had long hair, and on purpose, right? So our hair works like an antenna. Not that you should grow your hair in your career, but in a call center environment, you may very well be allowed to do that.
Yeah,
right?
we don't care what.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like a free game, right? In terms of how you want to, what you want to wear, what you want to look like, how many tattoos and how many piercings you want to have, right?
At the same time, I think Bjorn, there was another book as well that I read. I think it's Blink or some. Yeah, I think that is a title.
Malcolm Gladwell.
And that one states that, you know, as you go through life, eventually you get to read people and you get to read situations. So it becomes almost instinctive.
Yes.
So given certain signs, your brain outrightly would just process that, filter through certain information, and from there, that's why you think it's almost instinctive. But because you've been seasoned enough to be able to filter and take out the clutter, you can zoom in on the right information, the right focus, i.e. the right conclusion, and it'll lead you to that. So it's a skill that as you go through it and as you hone it, you sharpen it, you become just better at it.
Yeah, and the saying is, the more you know, the more intuitive you become, because you also have a base of reference in a way, and then maybe intuition can fill in that last piece in the puzzle, right? And to me, as we grow in our leadership, as we grow as leaders, and as we grow within an organization, the higher we go, I feel, intuition becomes critical, important, first important. And it grows in importance, and then it becomes critical, because as the leader, let's say you're the top leader, you will have to go places where nobody's gone before, right? And you cannot reference a map, you cannot reference some history usually, right? It's either you have to grow the company another 10%, which has never happened before, to that extent, maybe to that level of revenue, right? Or you expand the company, or you merge. There's always something happening that has never happened before, and that is where intuition becomes critical.
And sometimes even with just screening people, there's an X factor that just clicks.
That's right.
And again, no matter what kind of reasoning you have, sometimes you just know it is the right thing, and whether it's energy or it just tells you deep down inside there's just something right about that particular individual or choice. And that, I think, is the instinct. It's the gut that, you know, it tells you something.
And surprisingly, the gut actually has intelligence, right? It's like there's nerve endings going everywhere in our body, right? And so they also work like antenna. You know? All right, so our hour is almost up. I'm very excited that I've had you here. Lalaine, thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity, Bjorn. This is greatly appreciated.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Being able to chat with you and also with Arvy.
Arvy, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
We've known each other for 10 years. I've known you for 10 years almost, right?
Yeah.
Really fantastic. We should do this more often. It almost seems like the time flew by so fast it was not enough time.
Yeah, that's
right?
that's weird, right?
And we're very much in our elements here.
Yeah. So you were worried about what to say, you know?
Yeah, it just came out naturally.
Just very naturally, right? When you're in the right company, it just flows.
Yes. Thank you for that, Bjorn.
Well, thank you
and
too.
Arvy. Yeah.
And also thanks, Engineer Grace Bondad Nicolas, for allowing us to be here today. This is another informative day for all of us, and for next week, we don't know yet who will be the guest for Grace, but it's going to be again about, let's talk about career. And again, on behalf of Grace, this is Bjorn Martinoff, your guest host for today. Good afternoon.
Libreng pagbibigay ng on-the-job training sa mga piling propesyon. Makibahagi. Let's talk about career.
Bantayan ang pag-uulat sa bayan na ihahatid sa inyo ng himpilan na kakampi ng bayan. Tutok na sa DZME1530 para sa pinakabagong balita at impormasyon kaugnay sa ika-6 at huling sona ni Pangulong Benigno Aquino III. Ito ang Sona sa 1530 State of the Nation Address 2015. Astig ang paninindigan. Bawal issue sa pamahalaan. Mula barangay hanggang Malacanang ang pag-uusapan. Narito na ang programa Rock Politics. battle to dominate the world